Hi, good morning everybody. In this video, let's just recap the 4 games last night, take a look at the surprises and the disappointments coming up. All right, folks, I'm going to call this the early bird. This is what I'm going to term this segment of, temporary segment of the channel while the playoffs are going on. I'm going to throw out some reports on the teams because sometimes the games finish way too late, guys. And I just want to go quickly through the 4 games. And of course, I'll be doing some Sabres videos when I get home later today. But just for the hockey buffs in general that, of course, are watching the playoffs, like I am. I watched all these games yesterday, and I got my opinion on each one of them. So I am going to break this down a little, what I seen, you know, and what surprised me and what didn't surprise me. All right, first clip, guys. I'll just put it below as I'm speaking. Here we go. Now, the Bruins and Hurricanes. Of course, Carolina won 5-1 in that game. And as you can see, the face-offs, the Hurricanes outmatched them pretty good, 57% to 43%. The power plays were both 0 for 3. The hits in the game, Boston had 42, Carolina had 48. I'm going to go over that in a sec. The block, 17-16 for the Bruins. And the giveaways, Carolina had 20. And a lot of those were earlier on in the game. And giveaways for Boston were 10. Shots in the first were 14-10 Boston. Shots in the second, 11-9 Boston. Shots in the third, 11-6 Boston. Boston outshot them in the game, 36-25. And if there's anybody that didn't see this game, Antti Raanta was fantastic in this game. He really was. He was just awesome. I mean, he was. You weren't going to beat him on this night. Ullmark looked good in the beginning, but Ullmark looked like what Sabres fans would remember Ullmark like in the end, where when he starts to be off in a game, he just never gets his game back. It felt like, and he was pretty easy to beat, I thought, after. You know, they had to make some beautiful plays, though, to score, too. Ullmark was, he made, 20 saves on 24 shots. Not very good. But he did play well, especially the start of it. He kept them in. And but Antti Raanta was just above and beyond the better goalie. Now, what I'll just say about this game, guys, those hits, okay? The 48 hits, I would say at least 1 out of every 5 knocked a Bruin right off his feet onto the ground. This is how hard hitting Carolina was in this game. Boston was hitting. Boston was doing their physical game. As you can see, the playoffs are here. 90 hits in this game. But above and beyond, Carolina were the aggressive team in this game. Well deserving of their win in this game, without a doubt. I mean, they were just above and beyond the better team by the time the game closed out. Let's check the next one. Here we go. Toronto and Tampa. Big surprise there. All right, here's the clip. Now in that game, I watched all these games. I mean, this game here, I mean, you could see playoff hockey's back, guys. Look at the hits in that one. So 56% for Toronto on the faceoffs, and it looked much better than that, actually, you know. Tampa's power play was awful. Just awful yesterday. Awful. They were terrible in this game. I mean, I'm not going to go over what all the players did. I want to keep this video rolling. But you guys that seen this game, I mean, you know, Matthews, I mean, he was all over the place. Marner was all over the place. It really wasn't that Toronto was really good. Toronto was really good in this game, but Tampa was also that bad. Tampa looked old and slow. They really did. They looked confused. They couldn't finish their passing. I couldn't understand what I was watching, really. It was a bit of a bloodbath if you look, 62 penalty minutes to 51. Anyway, let's keep it going. The hits in the game, Tampa had 56 hits. Toronto had 36, and if you watch that game, the hitting looked even though it says 56-36 here. The hitting looked even. Tampa's hitting wasn't that deadly like Carolina's was, you know? So sometimes, yes, the hits can be misleading. In this case, it was. It was a lot of love taps, I thought. I really did. They had 11 blocks. Toronto had 25. Toronto were so much faster than Tampa Bay yesterday, folks. So much faster. The giveaways were 10 for Tampa and 14 for Toronto in the game. Shots on goal. Let's break that one down. In the first, Toronto, 8-5 shots on goal. Second, 11-11. Third period, 14-8 for Toronto. 33-24 Toronto in the game. Folks, it felt like 50-20. It just did. It had that kind of feel. Toronto was so much better than them yesterday. So much better. So Tampa can only get better. And in a game like this, Tampa can only bounce back that much easier. Like, it's much better for Tampa Bay. I'll say this right off the cuff. It's much better Tampa Bay lost 5-0 than 2-1 in overtime, because that would be harder to bounce back from. 5-0, they can just look at that and say, oh my God, that's our worst playoff game we played in years, So I would expect Tampa Bay to bounce back next game. Will they win? I don't know. Toronto might have the killer instinct. We'll have to see, guys. We'll have to see next game. Moving on. St. Louis and Mini. St. Louis won this game 4-0. Well, let's take a look at the stats. Here we go. All right, faceoffs were pretty even, 48%, 52. Blues cashed in on their power plays. That was the difference in this one, really. 2 for 6 in the power play. The Wild were 0 for 6. The hits were 22 for St. Louis, 23 for Minnesota. And if both those teams are going to hit like that in the playoffs, they're both going to be early work when they run into a team like Colorado. Not because Colorado hit hard, but Colorado will kill a team that's only hitting this much. The blocks were 17 for St. Louis, 6 for the Wild. Giveaways 6-6 each. Shots on goal. And let me get to that. Shots on goal, 14-12 Mini in the first. Shots in the second, 14 Mini again. 14-10. And 9-9 in the third. They split 37-31. Minnesota outshoots the Blues in the game. But the Wild, again, look lost. I found they looked lost in this game. This was the game I probably seen about only half of it, maybe a little more, because it was frustrating to watch. I was kind of cheering on the Wild in this game. I was hoping they would make a game of it at least, I was very surprised Minnesota kind of lost this easy. But you know what? They weren't hitting enough. And Minnesota's capable of hitting more than this. And if you're going to let a team that doesn't hit like St. Louis off the hook, they're going to beat you just with their skill alone. But I really thought Minnesota would come out and get like 50 hits in this game, and they were just invisible physically. They were. That's just what I seen in that game. It was the most boring game of the 4 yesterday. It really was. This is what I thought was the most exciting game of the 4, guys. Here we go. The Kings and the Oilers. What a good game this was. This went right down to the wire. Talk about that in a sec. But it was a good, fast-paced, hard-hitting, good skating. It was just a good playoff game. Really, really good, intense playoff game. Back and forth, like I love watching in the playoffs. Let's put up the clip. Now, the Kings on the face-offs, you see 51% to 49. The power play, they were 0 for 4. The Oilers were 2 for 4. And they still lost, folks. The Oilers lost, even though they were 2 for 4 in the power play, and the Kings were 0 for 4. And the Oilers did that in their own building. Not a good sign for Oilers fans. Hits, the Kings had 38. The Oilers had 40. Good, hard-hitting game, really was. But it was the speed of this game. I was so impressed with LA in this one. That's 3 of the 4 teams that won yesterday, I called the other teams to win the series. So we're going to see how that breaks down. It's hard predicting the playoffs. The blocks, the Kings had 23. The Oilers had 18. And the giveaways, the Kings had 8. The Oilers had 9. Shots per period, 16-13 for the Kings in the first. 16-4 for the Oilers in the second. Looked like they're taking over. And then the Kings come out in the third and outshoot the Oilers 15-10 and score the late goal. So this is going to be a good series. Danault was everywhere. Quick was outstanding in this game. Outstanding. I mean, he let in 3 goals, yes, but he was outstanding. He really was in this game. And of course, my buddy Abe was probably having a heart attack when Smith came out of the nets and did his usual turnover to the other team, and they eventually scored the winner. I was like, oh no. And I was on the phone with Abe when this happened, and he's just so, he goes, there it is. He did it again. Like, I was like, oh my God, he actually did it as we're talking about it. I would look for the Oilers to get back in the series, though. This is going to be a long series now. LA established that yesterday. Now it's a long series. If the Oilers fans are hoping for a 4-1, not happening. Not now. Not after you lost the first one, sorry. Now the Oilers got to win 4 out of 6. All these teams that lost now got to win 4 out of 6 games, including Tampa. So, all right, guys, that's my take on the games yesterday. I would say the most exciting game, without a doubt, was Edmonton-LA. It was the best paced, most funnest game of all of them to watch for hockey fans, you know? The most hard-hitting game, without a doubt, was Carolina-Boston. That game was brutal. Carolina were hitting them when they didn't have to, and hitting them hard. They were punishing them. So if Carolina keeps that up, they're going to make quick work of Boston, because Boston came out with their A game, guys. They did. Boston fans that say no, they didn't, they're just lying to themselves. I watched that game. Boston came out physical and strong and passing well. They just couldn't beat Raanta early, and that was the difference. So if Carolina come out like that next game, I would expect a very similar score. If they come out physical like that again, we'll see. Teams don't always do that, so we'll see. Toronto won't have an easy ride with Tampa next game. That was probably the most frustrating game for me to watch, because I wanted Tampa to get in this game too. But Toronto had nothing to do with Tampa Bay yesterday. And Toronto played them the right way. They didn't show them any respect. So I got to say the Leafs did that yesterday. And St. Louis and Minnesota is probably the most boring game of the bunch, guys. It just was. You know, I think we'll see Minnesota wake up in game 2. I think. If they don't, they're done. The season's over for many. There goes my prediction of them making the finals. St. Louis looked like an experienced playoff team the way they won it. I guess that's the best way to put it. But it was the most boring game. It didn't have much atmosphere. There was no hitting. It was the most boring of the 4. But we'll see, you know, things change in the playoffs. That's it. I'm wrapping it up, guys. I got to get out of here. I will see you tonight, guys, with the Sabres videos, of course. And the playoff reports I'm just going to do in the morning. It's just easier because I want to watch all these games right through to the wee hours of the night. You know what I mean? That's it, folks. I'll see you in the next video. See you tonight, guys.